There's often a debate about how people are supposed to act at, fencing events. During the fencing event, while they're fencing, while they're not fencing, a certain code of conduct, almost like a social contract that you sign when you walk through the door. And a lot of it's reasonable. It's the same social contract you sign every time you walk outside. Go outside and certain things you just don't do. Like, you have the right to do them, the right to say them, the right to act a certain way, and you choose not to do that because it would just be silly, or it'd be wrong, or for something. But the thing is there's a lot of debate about a real specific thing within tournaments, and that is celebration after a hit. Is celebration okay? Why don't we like celebration? Why do some people like celebration and other people don't? Where's the disconnect? What is it that causes such strong debate about something as simple or perhaps as complicated as celebrating after a touch or celebrating after a win? And the two biggest criticisms I see of celebration are often, one, it's disrespectful, and two, there's a possibility it could influence the judges. So I suppose we can talk about both. Let's talk about influencing the judges first. So, as it stands, HEMA is not terribly big. There's a lot of people that do HEMA, but when we compete, we go to local events, and oftentimes our own schoolmates are our judges. Sometimes it's friends from another school, but people we know well, people that we talk to often, are our judges. And sometimes they're the ring marshal. Sometimes they're the opponent. And you have a choice at any point to choose to be biased or not be biased, to celebrate, to not celebrate, to try and influence, to try not to influence the judges at every time, at every turn. And as much as I would prefer not to ever judge one of my own students or any of my classmates or my peers or my friends, sometimes the event needs me to do that. And I have to choose in that moment not to be biased. I have to choose not to be influenced by my student or my friend or my peer or whoever it is over there fighting. And I have to choose that nothing that fighter does other than the fencing in front of me is going to influence my decision. If I allow myself to be influenced by my relationship with that person, if I allow myself to be influenced by some action that fencer takes, if I allow myself to be influenced by an attitude outside of the ring, then I don't think I would be qualified to be a judge anymore. And it's not that I'm trying to make an argument that celebration should be allowed by virtue of it not actually influencing the judges. But what I'm getting at here is that there's a line that we've all drawn where it's okay for some influence, but not for other influence. And that line that we've drawn seems to be a little bit arbitrary. Because even though we'd all prefer to have impartial judges, and that's what we want, we all make concessions when it comes to selecting judges for events on how biased is it possible for them to be. Well, this guy is best friends with the fencer who is currently fighting. They go to the same school. Maybe they're related. Maybe it's his brother. Maybe it's his cousin. Maybe it's his boyfriend. Maybe it's his girlfriend. Maybe it's some kind of relationship that they have that's a little bit more intimate than just fencing. But he also celebrated, which means that influencing the judges. But those other things, just look the other way for those. And I suppose I struggle to understand why it is that we choose to draw the line at influence at that point, and why the idea of celebrating is such a big deal to influencing the judges. It doesn't, I suppose I would invite someone to explain to me why that's different than the other ways that a judge can be influenced. Concerning disrespect, yeah, if someone took their mask off and screamed in my face, I probably wouldn't like it. If I took my mask off and screamed in someone else's face, I wouldn't expect them to enjoy that either. Maybe if I turned around and I screamed, maybe the noise from my scream would be disconcerting to them or the judges, or give people a bad feeling. Now, if we're going to talk about strategy, yeah, nobody is above feeling bias. It's just a natural thing that people feel. And if I act a fool in my ring, then I risk influencing the judges negatively towards myself by making them all subconsciously upset with me and annoyed with me inherently. And I choose not to risk that possibly being an issue. But if the culture around is used to that form of celebration, then that's no longer an issue. We don't have to worry about that. So now we're just talking about disrespect between the two fencers. It's like, well, it's disrespectful to celebrate a hit in front of that fencer, if they're losing, if they're winning, and maybe so, but we're in a competition. In 30 minutes, someone's going to win a medal. It could be that guy. And instead of celebrating, now we're going to celebrate in 30 minutes because now it's okay to celebrate. It's not okay to celebrate in front of a singular person, but it is okay to clap and celebrate and carry the guy around on your shoulders and give him a medal and maybe a sword and maybe a bottle of wine or something. It is necessary. It is okay to celebrate that later. It's just not okay to celebrate now. And so once again, we seem to have drawn this arbitrary line that I'm not sure I understand where that line is supposed to be. And again, I invite someone to explain that to me. But moving on to my personal thoughts about celebration is that celebration, especially if it's non-malicious, if it's just a thing that you feel, a thing that you want to feel about something, a natural thing that comes out of you, just an emotional response to something that's happening. A lot of times, if you compete in something when you're young, when you're a child, you play intramural sports, you play school sports, debate club, band, whatever it is, anything that has any kind of modicum of competition. In that moment in your life, especially when you're young, a lot of times that's the most important thing you've ever done. That's the most important thing you've ever experienced. Then you look back in your adult days and think, wow, high school band meant not much. And it doesn't really have anything. And I remember caring about it so much, and you think it's kind of silly that I cared so much. But at that time, that was the most important thing to you. And to a lot of us, fencing is the most important thing in our lives. And we put everything we have into this sport. And I often think sometimes that when someone has an emotional reaction to a win or loss in fencing, and other people are made uncomfortable by that, sometimes I wonder if those people aren't insecure about their own emotional response to fencing and are perhaps maybe not jealous, but aren't sure how to take that level of emotional investment because perhaps they've never experienced anything so deep and so emotional to them in regards to fencing, and they're not sure to how to come to terms with the fact that maybe that person who's celebrating loves fencing way more than they could ever fathom. And you think, well, no, I compete, I get hype, I choose not to act that way, and that's fine. But I'm not sure that you can then impute your own ideas about how people are supposed to act in that particular way, how they're supposed to control their emotions, because you kind of come off as a little bit arrogant, like, I can control my emotions, why can't you control your emotions? If someone was having an emotional reaction about something you consider to be serious, you would never tell that person, you need to calm down, you're having an emotional reaction. That would be rude, that would be ridiculous. You would never tell your partner while they were crying about the loss of something or crying about something they cared about, hey, stop crying, you're having a negative reaction right now, and you've got to stop that it's possibly disrespectful. You would never do that, but in this moment, you are choosing to man, what's the word I'm looking for? You are choosing to project your own ideas on emotions and stability and emotional responses onto somebody else, and I'm not sure that's the right thing to do. Now, if we make a rule that say, hey, celebration is not allowed at this event, we can debate about why that is and why it isn't, and then we can punish people for breaking that rule, and that would be justified because they chose to break a rule. However, if there's not really any rule about it, then choosing to disagree about celebration, you've got to be prepared to explain to people, why is it that we don't like this? Why is it that you don't enjoy celebration? What is it that about celebration that makes you so uncomfortable? And my hypothesis, I believe, is that people are insecure about their own emotional investment into something. They've never experienced something that deep, that emotional. Even if they think that they have not. And they're unsure how to take someone else having that same reaction in front of them. And you think to yourself, this is just a fencing tournament. Like, who cares? It's just a game. And that's what I'm talking about. You don't understand because you've never experienced it before.